challenges? Are there the possibilities to leak information, or what do you think? Are the or what you can do, is it worth it? Yeah. Because of the.
Well, I believe so. It's coming anyway. I mean,
exactly.
Yeah.
Is there an other option? Yeah, I mean, I don't think there is another option. It's just making it better.
Yeah.
That's the question, how to make it better.
Yeah.
It's not the question whether we can prevent it. It's not really a question. Yeah, it will happen.
To do it
Yeah,
in a good way.
it will happen.
And also, I guess, over time, you will trade this privacy issues with the benefits you get of getting a better health, better understanding of your own situation, and that's why you are willing to trade away some privacy.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you already did, like you told us.
Yeah.
You couldn't care less if someone know how many steps you make in a day. But someone actually might care about it.
Yeah.
So if you sleep bad, they probably say, hey, she needs some help to get better sleep. So that's given. So advertisement of sleeping pills, so that push on use. You never know how they're going to use this.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. But
But anyway, if you can gain more than you have to pay, you will.
yeah, exactly. And with decreased amount of professionals who are going to spend time on analyzing and accessing all this information without use of mobile health, it's probably worth it. Although I think that maybe they think a lot of money, like how can they do this cheaper? Is it cheaper using mobile health? But that's not necessarily a bad thing.
No. No, you can benefit from that as well, of
Yeah.
course, because your healthcare will be better
Mm.
if you can pay less for it. So it's probably going to be a governmental push for it in the end as well, as long as they have to do it because of the lack of
Yeah.
funding and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I think some of it is maybe hard to do right now, but it will be increasing amount of mobile health for now. Can you go to the next one? So I found this. It's a follow-up with some answers for them challenges they are discussing in the paper. It's this one. Yeah. So there are 211 responses for this paper that you read. It's both inside and outside of the European Union, and it's different people answering from privates and public and there's 211 from healthcare providers and different entrepreneurs, and they gave feedback on the 11 issues that were discussed in the paper, and 97 responded believe that a strong privacy and security tools, like you said, data encryption and authentication mechanism will be important to build the patient's trust. And then you can see here, nearly half of the respondents asked for more patient safety and transparency information. And yes, 71 responded that. No, it's not. No, yeah, I thought about this one. Here, a fifth of respondents believe more evidence is needed to actually know if it's worth the cost effectiveness. But it's always going to be like that. People that don't think like, oh no, this is not a good idea because this is all new stuff. It's dangerous or something. So they don't know if it's worth it. But yeah, this is really interesting. It's a Scandinavic or Nordic countries. It's a study, and it showed that mHealth could actually decrease the amount of nights spent on hospitals with 50 to 60%. That's a lot. So then it's probably worth it. Yeah, did you find it?
Yeah, it's here.
I didn't read that one. Did you read
I haven't read that one either. So Boston Consulting Group with Telenor. No, I haven't read this one.
No. There's something to read. I haven't read it
Yeah.
either, so I just found it. They should have evidence if the European Commission are referring to that one.
Yeah.
There should be evidence for it. So
That's right.
okay. Any other thoughts about this? Did you read? Did you find this one? I didn't find it until I read the.
No, I haven't read that one either.
No.
Yeah.
It's just answers from.
Yeah.
Any thoughts, comments, or questions, or?
Just overall, I liked it. It was easy to read the paper.
Yeah.
It was written in a way that is probably easy to read it. So it's actually my first paper reading from the EU Commission or the EU at all.
Yeah, it wasn't that threatening, right?
No, it wasn't.
No, it was actually quite easy to follow.
They don't use any references.
It's more like
What do you mean by
Or
They use
sources?
edit the page. The sources are listed.
it's on the bottom all the time?
yeah.
I actually like to read it like that because then I can look at it all the time instead of have to go back and forth. So in the paper was in the footnotes,
Oh yeah, that's true.
so that was good.
Yeah.
But that was a combination of
me too.
references and explanations and stuff like
It's a different way to do it. So,
that. Yeah.
but I think like here we are not allowed to do it like that.
No.
We
It's not
can
the
only use the Harvard or.
Yeah, it's a different way of referencing.
Yeah.
And citing work.
Yeah.
But that was more like a report
Yeah.
than the
It
research
doesn't seem that,
publication. Yeah.
I don't know, important or professional to do it that way. I think that.
I mean, it's for clarity, and as you say, it's easier to follow by a generic public to sort of understand what they're coming from and what.
Yeah. I think people would rather read it like that than actually read the resources.
That's right,
To,
yeah.
like,
And
Yeah.
also, I like the way the questions
Yeah.
because then it doesn't tell you what you need to research further.
Yes.
In the entire paper. So
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah, so I quite like that one too. So the other two papers, so yeah, thank you very much. The other two papers kind of relate a little bit to the same theme. So I will, nope. Nope, those are all different ones. Yeah, let me find where I have the, here. Right, so the other article which was on the list was this one. Nope. This one. And this article is kind of it's similar to the European Union paper because they tackle the big picture, right? So they list some areas of where the apps are being used, and they list some of the challenges and some of the difficulties. So the interesting thing was the some of the data that they were quoting. So they were suggesting that there is 40,000 apps on the health-related apps, because they were quoting some other study which estimated the, where is it?
Down to left.
Oh yeah, here, yeah. So they say no fewer than 40,000.
Yeah, but you said there's 1,000 new every month, so
Yeah.
24 months later.
Yeah.
The 1,000 new ones every month, is that health related? Or?
Yeah, health related. Yeah. So they kind of, you know, there is a little bit of a risk if everybody cites a single study which estimated the apps. If they made a mistake, suddenly, you know, you have kind of a mistake being propagated.
And also, how do you count them? Do you count for each platform?
Yeah, exactly. So it's sort of, you know, you should treat those numbers with a bit of a care. So that the specification of what different apps are for and how they what their main purpose is was quite interesting. So they analyzed, they distinguished apps which are for medical providers. So the ones which are used by medical professionals, right? So there are apps which are targeting that user group, and they have specific requirements and specific, you know, challenges. And there is more of the UI, for example, can be more for professionals who know the language, who know the terminology, and so on. So in this category, you have, for example, a drug apps which kind of give you a short description of a particular drug. What are the pros and cons, where this drug is being used for, and what are the side effects. And medical professionals often need to check that when they are recommending a particular drug to a patient. So they ask, oh, are you allergic to this? And the patient may say, oh, I'm allergic to that. And they check if this particular drug doesn't have side effects for this particular situation, right? So they use it as a lookup. The other category was kind of disease specific. So they, you know, specify some of the apps which are, yeah, specific for a particular disease. There is medical education and teaching, so more like a lookup again for students, medical students. And then there is a general category of fitness apps and so on. And they were also saying that, as with the other paper, that there is a lot of publications being done, a lot of apps being done for that kind of fitness. There are two reasons for that. One is that it's wider market, you're not targeting particular patient group, you're targeting everybody, because everybody wants to be healthy. Even the healthy people want to be healthy. So the apps kind of target a wider market. Second thing is that they typically don't require any medical certification, because they are kind of running apps or well-being apps, and they are not really treating you or diagnosing you about anything. Therefore, they are easier to bypass the regulations, right? You don't have to have a approved regulatory, you know, certification.
And probably avoiding liability problems, because
Exactly.
It's not that dangerous to do this.
Exactly. So you've mentioned heart rate monitors. So do you think an app which measures a heart rate is a app which would require a certification or not? So what if, okay, let's say there is an app for melanoma, for a skin cancer, right? Would that app require a medical certification or not? So I take a photo of a lesion which I have on the skin, and it tells me, oh yeah, it's probably okay. It's not cancerogenic thing. Or it tells me, oh yeah, you should check it with the doctor because it might be melanoma. So would that app require certification or not?
For me, it would.
So normally for me it wouldn't neither. But they say, well, what if I do have melanoma and the app tells me that I don't, and I don't seek medical attention because I'm assured by the app that it's okay.
That's worse than the other one.
Then it's kind of a risk, right? I'm getting into trouble because of the app mistakenly diagnosing a particular condition, right?
I guess when you go into...
I mean, I can still go to a doctor. I mean, the app doesn't tell me, don't go to a doctor, but it tells me, well, I think it's not a melanoma, right? Yeah, so I may trust the app and I may not go to a doctor because I'm assured that it's okay, right?
So this giving some kind of diagnosis, that it's probably have to be said.
That's right. So now let's say I have a heart rate monitor.
What's the answer?
I don't know. So the official answer is that yes, those apps should have certification. Most of them don't, right? But they say, well, we know the medical app. We are just kind of a guidelines app, and you should always seek medical attention, even if the app.
So you probably click that you approve that when you download or something.
Exactly.
You're aware about it.
Yeah, that's right. So they kind of bypass that. But let's say with the heart rate monitoring app, I have a heart rate monitor and it tells me, well, your heart rate is, between 60 and 80. And I'm thinking, okay, then I'm fine. What if it kind of makes the measurements wrongly and my heart rate is actually 100 to 80 instead of 60 to 80? And I should seek medical attention because my heart rate is too high. And because of the heart rate monitor, I feel I'm okay because the heart rate monitor tells me I'm okay. Yeah, of course, but so that there is a gray area.
Won't it be the same if you don't measure it? You don't know that you have that.
Exactly. Yeah, but there is a difference between you not measuring it, and the difference is that if you haven't measured it, you don't know, and you're not assured that you're okay.
Yeah.
If you did measure it wrongly, you're sort of mistakenly assured that you're okay, but you might not be. Right?
Yeah.
So how about what's the difference between heart rate monitor and ECG? How ECG works?
ECG is probably electronically signals.
Yep. So who knows? What's the difference? What do you need to measure ECG? You mentioned it.
A lot of
Electrodes. Yeah. So you need some electrodes on the skin to measure the difference when the wave happens. What are the voltage potentials on the electrodes to calculate the actual wave of the electrical impulses which your heart generates, right? So with the ECG, you get exact shape of how your heart works, and with the peak and the rebounds, and then the peak and rebounds, right? So with ECG, you can calculate exactly what is your heart rate based on, say, 2 or 3 waves, because you can calculate exactly what is the distance between the peaks, right? Because you know exactly up to nanosecond, if you're accurate enough, of what that distance is. So you can actually calculate what is your heart rate in that instance, right? With the normal heart rate monitors, which the app was using, for example, the camera-based, it works by checking the blood flow in your finger, which changes slightly the color, and it has quite a long delay. So it's not a nanosecond accuracy. So they need to count the beeps, let's say, for 10 seconds, right? So for 10 seconds, they kind of count the pulses and say, estimate what your heart rate per minute is. But they can't tell exactly the variability. So for example, the app which you talked about, the stress, is by definition very inaccurate because it can't really differentiate, within a few heartbeats, what is the variability. It kind of knows the variability kind of long term, but not kind of very accurately.
I think it measures it for a minute or something.
Yeah, that's right. But the thing is how many breaths you take in a minute. Yeah, like how many? 10? How frequently you breathe?
It's more like, I said 15.
Yeah, so if you're really, really good and really trained well, you might take like 6 or 8. But an average person, yeah, 10 to 20. Yeah. And if you stressed, your heart rate is stable. But if you relaxed, your heart rate follows your breathing. So if you breathe in, it speeds up a little bit. If you breathe out, it slows down. So it's sort of, you have to know, within a few heartbeats, whether it's speeding up or slowing down to see the variability. And you can't really do that with heart rate monitors. You have to do that with ECG. So there is kind of a difference. That's why the strap-based ones are usually much more accurate, and they know more about what is happening than the simple heart rate monitors, right? So I'm using different ones. I have the watch, which has it's sort of like the same idea as with the camera. It has a bit of a laser, which shines the light, and it has a photoreceptor, and it sort of measures the changes of the color of the blood flow and calculates it is quite accurate, actually. So because I'm also doing sort of a manual tests in the morning, and today I woke up and I had 57 heart rate when I actually measured it myself, like with the watch, and it told me I had 57. So it was actually spot on. So if you're stationary, you're not making lots of movement, and you're in a dark room, it's very accurate.
Yeah.
If you're in a bright room, in a bright sunlight, when the sun kind of shines on the skin a little bit, and when you're moving your hand quite rapidly, like on a treadmill or running, it's not that accurate. It makes mistakes.
You tried with different plans.
It's
the same.
Yeah, so
I tried yesterday with the camera.
Yeah.
It's got like 10
different results.
3 and then 83 for the other one in seconds difference. Oh, it's strange.
Yeah, they're not accurate. Yeah, so that one is okay, but it's not super accurate neither. But it kind of provides you with the continuous heart rate monitoring. So you kind of throughout the day you can map what your variability was, and also what is your average resting heart rate, and what's your heart rate doing when you're actually exercising or going up the stairs and so on. So it sort of understands a little bit more about your fitness. With ECG you can do the same, but you kind of measure. So you have the big peak, and then you have the kind of the secondary one, and you can measure the distance between those two, and that also gives you how healthy you are. So the more healthy you are, the shorter the distance is, because the heart sort of gets stable very quickly. The less fit you are, you have kind of right. So you can sort of measure some of the indicators from ECG, and those strap-based monitors are very cheap, and you can do that. But do they require an FDA approval? Would they require to be treated as medical device? I don't think so. If I'm using it for myself, for running, or for kind of some simple tracking, I don't think they have to go through all that medical certification. If those are used in a hospital and kind of by medical personnel, then sure, of course, they should have the same quality as the medical equipment. But I feel there is a space where it's not of what the app does, but in which context it's being used, right? So if there is an app a doctor, a dermatologist uses to check if I have melanoma, sure, it has to be approved. It has to have certain quality for the doctor to use it as a device for estimating whether I have it or not. But if I'm using it at home, I download it on the internet. I mean, I don't assume it has to have the same quality assurance. Right? If I want quality, I go to a doctor. If I just want to play with something or check something, I can do that. Why shouldn't I? So there is a debate. And the second paper, I will talk a little bit more about the second paper in a minute, goes into that. So I just want to stress that they went through, that paper is quite okay, but it makes some interesting claims. And for example, they suggest in the section on, they bring up a lot of use cases for apps. So in dermatology, for skin cancer, in infectious diseases, for checking whether something spreads or not. It's kind of a good summary. And then in this section, they sort of recommend some of the certification initiatives. And one of the certification initiatives they mention is yeah, I should have marked it. Which one?
No, you should search.
Yeah, but it was kind of a made-up word. So they kind of call this thing health something. Oh, haptic. Yeah, that one. Haptic. Yeah. So haptic with, yeah, it's kind of so haptic health app configure standards. Yeah. So it was interesting because they say, oh yeah, that's kind of a good initiative, and then the other article says it was actually shut down, and it was shut down because out of 19 approved apps, by random check, 2 turned out to be harmful to people. So they did approve it, but the independent kind of commission decided that they approved something which shouldn't have been approved. So they actually shut it down completely. So that was sort of interesting turnaround. I don't know why the internet stopped showing my articles. Yeah, that one. So in this article, they said, yeah, the haptic thing has been shut down. What is interesting in this article, they kind of brought up the issue of regulation. So of course they don't say you shouldn't regulate it. Of course you should regulate it, but from one hand, you want to regulate it. From the other hand, you want to let people take care of their own health, right? So is it legal for you to take care of your own health yourself? Is it okay for you to measure some indicators and make decisions on it, even if you're not a health professional? And, you know, it's an open debate whether you should be able to do that, whether you should be able to do that on yourself, whether you should be able to do that on your children and, you know, on your parents, or whether you shouldn't, whether only professionals should be able to do anything with your own health, right? And it depends how far the regulatory mechanism will go. If the regulations will say anything to do with health will have to be regulated and only medical personnel can do anything with health, then suddenly you shouldn't be able to track yourself or do healthy things for yourself, right? Because you shouldn't. But on the other hand, how can do that? How can they do that? It's not possible to make it illegal for you to take care of your own health, right? So then the question also is how to make it that you take care of your own health, but in a correct way, right? And there are some interesting cases. So what they've discussed, so they take a different perspective on, you know, development of mobile apps, and there is the psychological perspective, the clinical one, technological one, and regulatory one, and that's what we're kind of discussing now. And in the regulatory one, they say 90% of American population reading skills don't go above a 6th grader. Therefore, they have a certain amount of illiteracy, right? So how can they take care of their own health if they can't read, you know, scientific document or explaining something, or they don't understand statistics, right? So if we as researchers provide some statistics about certain factors, if people can't understand it, they can't make actions based on those statistics, right? So their claim was that maybe people are too stupid and they shouldn't be doing anything to themselves. Maybe a doctor should be doing all of it, right?
It started with the cancer, with the smoking.
Yeah.
People didn't understand the risks. They thought the statistics.
That's right.
Showed something else.
But is the solution just assume people are stupid, or is the solution more to educate people, right? Or what's
Or the way you present it would be easier probably if you can present it in a more easily understandable way.
Yeah,
Also.
exactly. So of course there are challenges and there are kind of issues with that, but I felt you can't go with regulations too far, because it's better for people to be more educated and take better care of themselves for the whole healthcare system. If I know what the healthy lifestyle is, and if I know what I should and shouldn't eat, if I know how I should exercise and so on, it's kind of better for everybody. Everybody wins if I am more educated and more empowered to take care of my own health. Right? If I have to go with everything related to my health to a doctor, that is not going to work. And I feel it might be that we rely on doctors too much these days. Maybe in the past, when the population was smaller and so on, and I don't know, maybe people were kind of more attuned with their own bodies and with their own health. And the doctor was only consulted in more severe cases. Now we kind of go to a doctor with everything, right? And we sort of lost touch of what it means to have some small variations in different aspects, yeah.
But the issue is also that as a society has been sicker, there are more diseases, there are more cancer, there's HIV, there's the bird flu, there's the pig flu, there's all these kind of diseases that increases the need to go to a doctor, because do you have a cold, do you have a flu, do you have the pig flu, or the like, and even now, like last week or something, they said that for the first time they now discovered cow disease in or cow sickness, or whatever it's called, in Norway for the first time. And it's like basically I think the issue isn't that the attunement, but more than the fact that there are so many diseases running around that people get hysteria and paranoia, so they're like,
yeah, that is true. So what do you feel about regulatory issues and the apps? Yeah, one funny argument in the other article, not this one, the previous one, was that they say, well, only 30% or so of apps have high ratings. The other apps have poor ratings. Therefore, there should be regulations. But that's kind of actually the argument that the system works. The apps which are crap get low scores, and they are kind of weed out of the system naturally, right? So you don't need the regulations. If all the apps were highly scored, that would be a problem, because most of the apps are actually poor. And if everybody has a high score, that would be a problem. Somebody would have to step in and regulate it. But if the system is regulating itself, and if the bad apps get bad ratings, that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
But probably the trust, I guess you have to have some regulatory perspective to build trust over time, especially with the data protection and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
I think if they say, like, for instance, with the skin disease, that they say this is not like you have to go to the doctor to be sure this is just a
indication.
Yeah, then you don't need a regulation.
Yeah, that's true. There is an app for acne, skin acne, which you hold your phone and it shines some lights and supposedly it treats acne. Do you think it should be regulated, or or should just kind of stupid people pay? And
that's another one. They